Facility Arc. Oh, cool, I smirked. Mind if I pay 888 a visit then? Assuming she's still alive.
Call me 8.
The girl grinned, warm smile strangely genuine as she extended out her hand. Her long red hair was so bleached it almost appeared pink, her eyes a strangely red rosy hue to match. John, I smiled, taking her hand and shaking it firmly. Her eyes smiled just as warm, glancing over to O2, but not wavering in kindness, simply filling with curiosity as she turned back to me. From her back, 8 metal coils snaked to the ground like intestines.
In that case, I suppose you could call me Cersei Parsons.
She beamed, tilting her head slightly.
I must say, I've never seen a male god-bearer before. That's rather strange, rather exciting. I do love discoveries.
Oh gee, stop it. I smiled. I'm nothing special. You've got me beat by a class anyway. I see the 8th class specializes in using secondary weapons, like coils and chains.
That's right.
She nodded.
Other classes use them as well. But for lack of a better way to put it, it's really all we can do. We don't possess the healing capacity to utilize our bodies like 5th class, and can't manufacture poisons like 6th class.
She adjusted her uniform, glowing irises still filled with curiosity.
7th class? That's interesting. To be honest, I've seen very few. Please do not take offense at this, John, but I believe that class is usually reserved for god-bearers with glitches. You seem like quite the lovely individual, but may I ask what your defect is?
Being too good-looking, I guess. I shrugged, watching her laugh as O2 just grew flustered, her teeth gnashing. No, I wish. I laughed. To be honest, 8, I'm not quite sure myself, but I assume it's quite detrimental. If I'm leveling with you, until about an hour ago, I was convinced I was human. Her eyes sparked with interest as O2 gagged, skin again going pale as she stared at me. I had a hunch, though, I continued, sighing. Quite frankly, I'm amazed it worked out. I popped one of those cameras in the ceiling with the distortion, and that alone took so much energy I thought I might faint.
Wait!
O2 shrieked.
What the hell are you talking about?
A camera?
8 cocked her head.
Surely you knew that such an act would cause a daughter to tag you.
Nah, I breathed. See, I had a hunch about that too. Dahmer seemed to have a weird interest in me from the beginning. It first became clear when I wasn't assigned a cell, but rather some kind of hospital room. I don't remember much of anything, but it's pretty clear she was doing everything she could to keep me alive and ensure I survived as a god-bearer, or whatever you guys say. 8 leaned in closer, face positively glowing with interest. Then, I continued, O2 here informed me that I had been assigned a chance, one against a 5th class god-bearer. 8's eyes widened. This affirmed what I had begun to suspect. I sighed. Dahmer had been watching me ever since I woke up and began wandering around this facility. I had finally awoken as a god-bearer or whatever, and whatever she had tried to do to me had finally worked. Apparently, a male left hand is pretty weird. Impossible, in fact. For me to be alive right now is something of a miracle. Dahmer would be crazy to not jump on the chance to see what I can do by assigning me an impossible task. 8 nodded, light saliva drooling from her mouth as her curiosity began to make her squirm. I knew she wouldn't let me die before she had a chance to watch me try my best, I continued. There was no way she was going to let one of the daughters just vaporize me no matter how many silly rules I broke. The only way for me to test my theory was to break one and see for myself.
You...
O2 seethed, fists clenching.
You lied to me twice!
I ignored her, shaking my head as my heart dropped. But that's not important. I sighed to 8. I'm not important. What's important is what you've done, 8. She blinked, head again tilting. You've made a terrible mistake, I affirmed, watching her eyes flash with genuine shock. A glitch or not, I'm going to prove you wrong. I will not let you kill so many. Curiosity turned to betrayal, her body stepping back as her eyes narrowed. So it doesn't bother you? I spoke dryly. The chances. No one here has second thoughts about killing one another. You think that if you keep from getting to know each other, it's not murder? You're going to so easily play into this horrible game. You do realize Dahmer is a monster, and whatever purpose these chances are serving, they will lead to nothing but evil, right? There are over 40 people in here with godlike powers, more than 5 little 8-year-old girls could manage, no matter how strong they are. Despite all of this, you're just going to give up and kill each other. 8 looked to the ground for several seconds, before glancing back up with dull irises, the pink hue bleached to a horrid gray.
No,
She stated softly.
it doesn't bother us. And you have no right.
My teeth clenched before she softly continued.
That's the rule we've set ourselves.
She spoke confidently.
We don't get to know one another. 76. Everything you're thinking now, all the rage and despair you feel, we've all felt that. We know it far better than you.
Her hands unclasped and dropped to her side as she continued.
Every possible scenario for escape you're trying to conjure up, it's been done. People paid their lives for everything you're thinking now. It took countless losses for us to realize that we'd been denying the truth. There simply is no way out of the chances.
Her coils softly jangled as she shook her head.
I assume you've come to me with this because you think I have the power to change it. Right, Jonathan?
She shook her head again.
No. No one here has any power. Not anymore. There is nothing we can do. Some time ago, people seemed to see me as some kind of leader. But Dahmer saw this, saw the potential for uprising and turned it upside down.
She paused for a minute, glancing over to O2 before shrugging her shoulders and sighing as she spoke out.
If you haven't heard yet, perhaps we've lost so many subjects that the rumors are no longer spreading. All Dahmer had to do was...
She took a deep breath. Pink irises doling to crimson as she shambled over to her bed, hand grasping at the ruffled sheets and beginning to pull back.
was reveal who I truly was.
She spoke dryly, the sheets falling to the floor. I grew faint.
This system is of my own design.
8 continued, teeth gnashing as she turned to gaze at her coils that softly drifted into the air.
The daughter program, tagging system, and classification.
I was silent, watching O2 step back in betrayal as 8 rolled up her sleeve. Her flesh was dented and decayed with countless needle marks and lacerations, certain wounds encircled by black Sharpie, numbers written beside them. Beneath the covers of her bed, several makeshift cups held blood in various stages of decay, crude needles and shattered glass lazily strewn beside them. A notebook sat beside the gore, scribbled writing coating the pages with numbers and charts. Was she testing on herself?
I should have been the one on the other side of this.
She continued, softly scratching at her wounds, barely even flinching as blood began to pool underneath her fingernails, flesh tearing apart before it could heal.
I gave my life to this facility when I was human. This should have been my time.
Her teeth squeezed tighter before she shook her head slowly, dropping her sleeve and covering up the gruesome homemade scientific instrument with her covers, smile reappearing.
I'm sorry.
She tilted her head warmly.
People obviously didn't take too kindly to this, and things threatened to fall completely apart. Sudden distrust amongst the subjects meant more unnecessary deaths. I did not instigate any rule. Jonathan, it came about on its own.
She locked eyes with me before her smile dropped slightly, eyes narrowing.
But it is a good rule regardless.
She pushed.
We need to adapt to our new situation, all of us. We are not friends in here, and in the chances, we each try our absolute best. There is no holding back, no compromises. There is only what you can and cannot do. This is all that's left. It keeps things from getting personal.
I felt my fists loosen.
I'm sorry.
She repeated, turning to O2 and apologizing again, before looking back to me.
Please understand our desperation. If not our mentality.
She calmly pleaded.
You cannot possibly grasp the gravity of the situation.
You... Dahmer, Dahmer, you were Dahmer's understudy. I just questioned in disbelief. You're just... How old even are you?
I began interning at this facility in high school.
She sighed, clutching her head now, slowly sitting down on her bed.
I'm 20 years old now, I think. After my foster parents were caught in the aftermath of a left hand, I was willing to do whatever it took to learn more about the creatures able to take so much with so little effort. I wanted to crush them.
She shook her head again, slumping further into despair.
Dahmer eventually took a notice of my initiative. She took a liking to me and began bringing me onto more and more projects. The director at the time was interested in weaponing left hands for use against each other, but we could take it further than he was willing to go. Eventually, able to secure a grant for our side project, within 2 years, I was able to begin conducting tests on my own subject. A girl named Olivia.
My stomach knotted up, O2 growing pale.
I didn't care about her name at the time, of course, and she was assigned to the number 47. I did such horrible things to her.
Her fingers softly dug into her own flesh, thumbing through the tendons running up her arm.
It worked, though. Secondary weapons could trick the subconscious feedback response. But we were pushing the boundaries of the same idea. We were making serious progress. Then...
Her voice died out as her eyes grew distant.
I suppose I got what I deserved.
You... I stammered.
The daughter program, in its initial stages, involved removing adult parasites from the host and keeping them incubated in surrogates before artificial implantation.
8 fought to remove her fingers from healed-over flesh, having to tear it open again to wiggle free.
I suppose was an accident bound to happen. The parasites turned out to be more resourceful than we thought at ejecting themselves into the host.
O2 scoffed, eyes narrowing as she leaned against the wall. 8 flinched, shaking her head in agreement.
There is not a thing I do not regret. But becoming this creature, the monster I've always hated, it has not affected my view. I understand now, more than ever, the necessity that we be eliminated. We are far too human.
If you admit we're human, I fought back in confusion. What makes you say that?
Humans cannot be trusted with this kind of power. The power to take another's life with but a thought. It is an evolutionary trait we, as a species, cannot survive with.
Well, I spoke slowly, before picking back up my false facade, smug smirk spreading across my face again. With all due respect, 8, I think you couldn't be more wrong in that. Her face remained unchanged, shaking my words away. I'd argue you're the only one not adapting, actually. I shrugged. Seems kinda ironic. Her eyes narrowed then, crimson discs igniting as she looked at me. I'd say the parasites are the test the world needs, I stated coldly. If you're going to go absurdly big picture here and talk about the human condition or whatever, don't think your view is the only one. I'd say the parasites are more of a test of what makes a human. Will people always destroy when given the chance? You seem to think yes, but I just can't be so negative. I guess now, more than ever, it's time to see which of us is correct. Can those designed to destroy band together to create? You say that humans by nature will destroy each other. I say this is a perfect time to prove yourself wrong. Her eyes were wide, her mouth pursed tight. O2 suddenly grew uncomfortable against the wall, dropping her arms to her sides again as she stared at me in disbelief. And if not, I continued, beginning to feel my heart rate spike again as I tried to keep up my fake confidence. I suppose I'll have to do it for you. How about a deal? 8. I cocked my head. I'll play by this silly rule. I won't hold back in the chances, but I'll prove to you that hope is not lost. I'll prove it to everyone. She looked back up to me, coils dropping to the ground. I won't die tomorrow, I continued. If this place has fallen into a rut of accepting this paranoid rule as life, if a new perspective is what we need, you can bet I won't be going anywhere. If for no other reason than to be the sole one still fighting for a way out, I will not be eliminated. She went to speak, but I cut her off. As long as I'm still kicking, you will follow me in that new perspective. And in exchange, I promise you that my opponent and I will both survive tomorrow. She choked as O2 stepped forwards, shaking her head.
Possible.
She stammered.
The chances only dictate that one god-bearer can...
Yeah, that's what they say. I nodded, turning back to 8. So, it's certainly not a hard deal to agree to, is it? I'm almost certain to fail. 8's eyes glistened, and I watched O2's steely irises narrow intently, something indiscernible flashing across her face. Do we have a deal, 8? I repeated. After several seconds of stunned silence, I held out my hand. What has happened here, people not getting to know each other, people shutting each other out, is exactly what Dahmer wants. In the end, I'm going to prove you wrong, prove the world wrong about the parasites. I blinked softly, reaching forwards and grabbing her hand, continuing. But I can't do it alone. Her fingers slowly grasped mine. I smiled and shook her hand firmly. Deal. I collapsed as soon as I was around the corner and out of view from 8 and O2. My breaths were coming hard and fast, my heart beating so erratically that I was having trouble breathing at all. What the fuck was I doing? What the hell kind of character was I pretending to be? I looked down at my hands, watching them crawl with faint black distortions with an amount of focus that made my head spin. I nearly vomited. So, I was a left hand after all. Why didn't I feel any different? I coughed, finding that some vomit had actually risen in my throat, sheer panic forcing my stomach into convulsions. I couldn't face another left hand? A chance? I didn't have any weapons. I couldn't use distortions in a battle against another left hand anyway, not that I understood how to use them. Wasn't I supposed to be stronger? Wasn't I supposed to be different? Callie could hack things apart with chains, Julie could crawl on fucking walls and tear herself apart without even flinching, but I was still just me. I had nothing. My irises vibrated. The lowest class. I was defective. Of course I was. I wasn't supposed to be like this. I could barely function as a human, let alone something with capabilities I didn't understand. What the hell had I said back there to 8 and 02? It was all bullshit. Why was I trying to be the hero I could never be? I couldn't defeat a left hand any more than I could win a fight in real life. I had never even been in a fight. I squeezed my eyes shut, staggering against a wall, my hand bracing against it as I tried to breathe steadily, finding it getting increasingly hard as my blood pressure spiked. As I went to put weight on my hand against the wall, I suddenly felt it slip out from under me. The floor rushed forwards faster than I could blink, a red sludge beginning to pool beneath me as I put my hand to my face in terror. It was glistening with blood, having streaked all the way down the wall and quickly being consumed by the lake expanding from my broken form. My uniform was completely saturated, my lips parting and sloshing out what I had thought was vomit, revealing itself to be dark gore, curdled and hot. I scrambled in panic, struggling against the wall with great effort, my wet hands gripping for a handhold. My feet squeaked across the wet ground as I was finally able to get a grip on the slick, reflective wall and haul myself up against it. I coughed up more blood, watching it fall in heavy clumps. My hands frantically wiped at my eyes to feel more of the liquid sticking my eyelashes together, tinting my vision red. I didn't feel any pain, no reason for all of this blood. All I felt was hot. Hotter than I had ever been, like I was experiencing a mind-numbing fever that was slowly peeling away my circuits. My muscles were rapidly becoming distant, sweltering away like brittle paint as nausea made standing upright downright impossible. That's when I turned to see a form down the hallway, watching me. Her lightning blue eyes were wide with alarm. Her walk stopped mid-stride as my weak heart spilled into my throat. It was 02. I'm fine. I instantly staggered loudly, forcing out my fake smile, again feeling my hand begin to slip as my palms sweated out blood. I do this a lot. Just a little. My vision went dark.